right, moving right along, Prop 12.
Proposition 12 would establish new minimum standards for confinement of egg-laying hens, calves raised for veal, and breeding pigs. So first I'm going to describe current law regarding the standards for housing of these animals. And then I'm going to describe how Proposition 12 would change those current standards, and I'll conclude by summarizing the likely fiscal effects of those changes. So under current law established by Proposition 2 in 2008, generally farmers, the law generally prohibits farmers from housing egg-laying hens, calves raised for veal, and pregnant pigs in cages or crates that do not allow them to lie down, stand up, fully extend their limbs, or turn around freely. Proposition 12 would move towards more specific standards for the types of housing and also for the amount of floor space required for the animals. So specifically, under Proposition 12, farmers would generally be required to phase in cage-free housing for egg-laying hens by 2022. Farmers would also be required to provide calves raised for veal with a minimum of 43 square feet of floor space beginning in 2020, and breeding pigs with a minimum of 24 square feet of floor space beginning in 2022. In addition, Proposition 12 would make it illegal for businesses in California to knowingly sell pork or veal from animals housed in ways that do not conform with Proposition 12's requirements. The sales ban not only applies to products from California, but also from animals raised out of state. The proposition would have some fiscal effects that we've identified. It would likely result in price increases for eggs, pork, and veal for two reasons. First, many farmers would have to remodel or build new housing for animals that could be more expensive to operate on an ongoing basis, and much of these increased costs are likely to be passed through to consumers. Second, it could take farmers years to build the new housing. During that period, there may be shortfalls in the availability of eggs, pork, and veal. There may not be enough to meet the demand, and this could lead to increase in pricing until farmers can change their housing systems and build up their supply in order to meet the demand. Now, we note that several companies, major companies, restaurant chains and groceries, have announced that they're moving towards sourcing eggs from cage-free, from farmers who use cage-free housing systems. So to some extent that occurred, some of these price increases may have occurred on the natural. Because the measure would increase operating costs for some of California's farmers, they might choose to stop production altogether or reduce their production. And to the extent that this happens, there would likely be a decrease in state tax revenues, but likely not more than several $1 million a year. Also, there would be costs for the California Department of Food and Agriculture. They would have to check that farmers in California are conforming with the new housing standards for the animals, and also they'd have to check out-of-state providers. We estimate that these costs could be up to $10 million annually.
Thank you. So in terms of endorsements, support is the California Democratic Party, Young Democrats, other Democratic organizations, and Green Party organizations. In opposition, we have the Republicans and the Libertarians. In support, Sierra Club, labor organizations, the Humane Society, which was the sponsor of this measure in the first place, SPCA, and other animal-related organizations, and more of the same, Humane Society, SPCA, etc. In opposition, we have PETA, and Californians Against Cruelty, Cages, and Fraud, and pork producers, as you might expect, and egg farmers, but it's sort of a mix there. You might want to look up why those organizations are in opposition. And then in support, we have a couple of members of the legislature and nobody coming out in opposition. And then we have a split on the media endorsements across the state. The funding is mostly on the yes side, and we have humane organizations and also individuals. And then on the other side, we have a group called Humane Farming Action Fund that put $500,000 or so towards it. So again, very lopsided on this measure. Questions on Prop 12?
I just have a quick one. In the current regulatory scheme, is there a date for cage-free hens specified in the current law?
No.
No, okay. So this would set the date for cage-free hens.
2022, and they're also...
The very end of the year, right.
Right. The measure would also require that by 2020, egg-laying hens be provided with 1 square foot of floor space.
Okay, thank you.
Can you speak to if there's been any legal assessment in terms of the commerce component of this, the interstate commerce factor, that we're regulating what can be sold here, transported across state lines? Like, it seems like there's a lawsuit that would limit the ability of this law to be enacted.
So I'm not a lawyer, but in discussing the issue with lawyers, some of them indicated that they think that that was an issue that's likely to arise, and probably lawsuits would be filed along those lines.
Any additional questions on Prop 12? With that, we have come to the end of these exciting ballot measures. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much to the Legislative Analyst's Office for putting up with us this evening and summarizing very succinctly all these ballot measures. We totally appreciate that, and they've been partners with us over many election cycles and have done an excellent job. Thank you so much for coming.